Done here. John's running off on me. I was going to talk to him. Where did John? John, come back here. Come back here. John, before you leave, because you're going to do something else later, right? Did you bring a mute with you? On the last hymn, could you play the melody part with a mute? Because it comes from a Bartok piece in which the original melody is played by muted brass. I want you to pitch in if you can. It's in B flat. You can do this. Okay. Well, you have to transpose, though. You can do that. He's a bright guy. Come on. Work on it. Maybe you can't do it, but I just thought I'd ask. I also omitted to tell you that if you can't smell it, it's over there. There are enough quiches there to keep you fed for a very long time. So go and eat them afterward. This is very important that you do that. Number 312, John. Number 312. Perfect singer. It's a beautiful tune. Well, another week has gone by, and yesterday I was on the edge of my seat until Michigan State pulled it out yet one more time. Whew. Who knew Northwestern would be such a challenge? Wow. And of course, as far as I'm concerned, the end of the season can't come soon enough. Please just let him get to the end. Is it Iowa next week? Oh, geez. The election, of course, cannot come too soon, if only to get my airwaves back and my ears back. But of course, finally we have a little autumn cool that's arrived. We were blessed with a long, luxuriant, sunny, even warm September and October, so the real autumn is finally arriving. We're preparing to hold our annual meeting in about 3 weeks. That happens here right after church on the 14th. And then it is but a skip and a jump to the holidays. Are you ready? Not me. And even though Sunday comes every 7 days, I'm never ready. Which is why I stand here in need of your help every week. For I know the true sermons are not what preachers say, but what congregants hear. May then these words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found true in your sight, as well as any other. Thou who art my rock and my redeemer. At the early service, I spoke to the families there, and we have a number of young children. It was a larger than usual attendance because the junior choir sang that great song we heard a couple of weeks ago, so we had a wonderful time. But I asked all of them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And some wanted to be a firefighter or a teacher. Someone wanted to be an assistant to Bon Jovi. I allowed as how he should have the job if Bon Jovi's still working at the time he's capable of taking it on. And of course, someone said an actor and a singer. Some were not sure. And I said, me too. When people ask me why I became a minister, I said, I'm only doing this until I figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I think all of us, or at least a lot of us, have that sense that we're never quite where we thought we could be or should be. I remember seeing report cards from my youth, and the teacher would write comments on them. And more than one would say, and they used my first name then, Weldon's grades would be higher if he would work up to his potential. Any teachers ever remember writing such a thing? That had a profound effect on me. I became aware of later, as an adult, of that famous remark by Charlie Brown in Peanuts of how there's no greater curse than a great potential. But it instilled in me a sense that I ought to amount to something. And I'm saying all this because I still am trying to figure out what I should be when I grow up. When I went to college, I thought I'd be a composer and a conductor of classical music, and I did pretty good, but then I discovered that most everyone else was better than me, at least in music school. I like studying religion too, so I decided to do that while I was figuring out what to do next, and that was in 1975. In 1980, on October 26th, 30 years ago, I was ordained. And I asked myself, where did the time go? What were you doing 30 years ago? Well, I was a kid then. A kid in the chronological sense, but I was a baby minister, like the baby here. I had my degree, of course, and I thought I knew all my stuff, and I spent the last 30 years unlearning most of that. Unlearning, I mean very seriously. I now know that it's not what you know that makes you smart, it's what you know that you don't know that makes you smart. Knowing yourself, all that stuff, and who you are and who you are not. That's the part that makes you smart. That doesn't mean you're informed. It just means you're intelligent when you know how stupid you are. And at the rate I'm going, I should be quite brilliant by the end of my life. I'm getting smarter every day as I discover more and more that I do not know. But will I ever be, shall we say, completely smart? No, of course not. Figuring out how much you don't know, though, is in some ways more important than what you do know. So I'm going to pause here at this poignant anniversary for myself and observe that 30 years of ministry is 30 out of 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. So maybe 10 years from now I will know what I should be when I grow up. Or maybe it's more like baseball. In fact, now that we know that the Giants and the Rangers are going to play, which means I don't really care. Sorry. Well, the Giants are great. They used to be in New York. I can go with them. I'm sorry, the Texas teams don't do a thing for me, but there's a baseball metaphor, rounding third. That's where the title comes from. You go 1, 2, 3, 4 bases, 4 decades, and you're heading home, wherever home is. One of the images we've used all month long, and perhaps next week it turns in another direction, is the idea of wandering, of like the children of Israel in the desert, of being on a spiritual and physical journey that you're not sure how long it will last, and even where you're going to end up or how you're going to get there. Oh, I knew what I was going to do when I was ordained there in that little church. I knew what I wanted. I knew where I was pointed. I wanted to be a success. Who of us doesn't want to be a success? And of course, to be successful means to be admired by one's colleagues, to prove your worth to Miss Howard in the 6th grade, and all those other people who think I need to work up to my potential. How much those things in our youth drive us as adults. Isn't it amazing? So I wanted to be successful, and I have succeeded in a variety of ways. That first church I served had 90 members in a town of 900 people. This church is larger than the whole town I served for 5 years. That's a success, I suppose. And none of the churches I have ever served ever had a plant as magnificent as this. I've published articles and columns. I helped to write the hymn book we use. By any measure, a success. In fact, my supervising minister when I was an intern wrote me a letter recently to congratulate me that of all the ministers he helped to train, I was the one who had become the most successful. It felt good. But I wrote him back and said, honestly, I don't feel like much of a success. All those things that we come out of seminary looking to do, all the great plans, they've never accumulated to me the way I expected. For example, I've never grown a church substantially in members. People tell me I'm a pretty good preacher, but they manage not to show up regularly. I've never built a building. I have colleagues who've done that. I've never published a book. Though considered to be a worthwhile candidate and a worthy colleague, it took until last year to be invited to give my first ordination sermon for someone else. Matthew got his last week. So you see, no matter how we look at ourselves, we're going to find success and failure on both sides. In the early service, I talked about this as success and failure, but mistakes and accomplishments.